Hi, my name's Amanda and today I'm going to share with you my top tip for crochet, and I wish someone had told me this when I first started out, is buy yourself some stitch markers. They are absolutely invaluable for keeping yourself on track and keeping your edges nice and straight. So in this example here, when I set off with my chain, after I've done 3, I put a stitch marker in my first chain. And whatever I am doing, whether that could be a blanket or a jumper or whatever, I put a stitch marker in maybe every 10 or every 20 stitches, depending on how big my project is. And I always keep those in that first chain. Then I will always put one in my first stitch when I move up. So for instance here, I've done a few rows and I've got one in my first stitch and I've got one 10 along and in my last. So when I'm coming along, I know that this is my last stitch because that's where my stitch marker is. So I can take it out or leave it in, doesn't really matter as long as I go in the correct hole. So in this one, I'm just doing UK doubles. So for my next row, I would chain 1 and turn my work. And then you need to know where your first stitch is going. So this is just a swatch for me. So this is my chain and this is where it is coming out of. So depending on whether you're following a pattern, it will tell you to go in, your 3rd or 4th chain from your hook or work in your first chain. So if it tells you to go in your 4th chain from your hook, however many you've chained here will become your first stitch. So this would be 1, 2, 3, and you would work your next one in there. If it tells you to go in the first stitch, then this would be your first stitch and your turning chain would not count as a stitch. So because I'm just making a sample here, I'm not going to count this as my first stitch, and so my first stitch would go in there. So this is just a regular double crochet. I would go in where my turning chain is coming out of, make my stitch, and as soon as I have done that, I would put my stitch marker in there. So when I turn coming back the other way, I know that that is going to be the last one when I turn around, and off I would go. And when I get to 10, I would take that one out and move it up. So I always have a stitch marker in my, I would say 10, 20, however many, and I always have one at the beginning and the end. If you don't, you can end up going in or going out on either side, and then you'll end up with so many more or so many less stitches and basically just the incorrect amount of stitches for what you are working on. And we'll give you an example now of the first thing that I made, which looks like a wiggly worm. And probably maybe 2 months later, I progressed to this jumper because things just twigged and someone told me to buy some stitch markers. I also like to keep my finger behind the stitch that I'm working in so I can push my hook onto it. It helps my yarn go on. Also, sometimes I even push it on with my finger. Once I've pushed my stitches down, I like to keep my thumb and my finger actually on the stitch that I'm working in. It just all adds to a little bit more stability. So if you need to push it on with your finger and then get holes where you are there, I find that just helps me keep things a bit neater as well. The key to crochet is literally just practice, practice, practice. It probably took me about 5 hours to get my slip knot when I first started going, and then one day it will just click. I hope all this helps. Thanks for watching.